All right, so there's a couple things that that are gonna make you a little bit better bow hunter and save you a lot of trouble. So I was lucky I had a mentor, bow hunting mentor. My dad bow hunted a good bit, but also had an uncle, Randy, who did a lot of bow hunting growing up, and he got me started shooting instinctively, so practicing a lot. And he also taught me a few tricks and some things to do, which I'm gonna share. So basically, the main thing for bow hunting is be prepared, because the shot, you may not get but a second to take that shot. The video I'm going to show in a few minutes of the shot of this last buck I shot, I only had the second when I pulled the trigger on the release was the only second I could have pulled the trigger and made the right shot, because the deer was moving and the window was, it was like this to shoot through, where I actually had a shot. So basically, the main thing you want to do is be prepared. So there's a couple things you can do that I like to do. I'll walk you through basically my my preparedness little checklist, my mental checklist, and it's not that hard. But a couple things that I found minimize issues in the stand to be prepared. So when I'm walking up to my stand, first off, I have this on when I'm walking up to my stand. I keep the quiver on, because you want to have access to these arrows, and you don't want everything flopping around. And when you're just walking through the woods, this is pretty much the best way to carry your arrows, unless you have like some kind of special backpack where it would ride along your spine. This is basically the best way to keep you from catching on too much stuff. But once I get into the stand, this comes off immediately. The reason being, it's just more bulky. Most of the stands I hunt have at least some type of rail around it, whether it's my climber or one of the ladder stands. They all have a little thing that goes around that has material, and this would just get in the way. It's one more thing to get caught up. It extends the end of the bow. So as soon as I get in there, I'll take my backpack off and basically hang my backpack up, and then I'll stuff this in the backpack, out of the way, or hang it or whatever. Another thing, before you even go to step, so if you're going hunting in the morning or in the afternoon, whatever it is, before you're going to get your clothes on, you need to check your stuff. Like I said, either the night before if it's in the morning, or during the day when you're not rushed for your afternoon hunt, because if you see an issue, you're going to be a lot more likely to kind of ride it and see how it goes if it's last minute. So get ahead of it. So keep everything waxed. The main things I check are the things that go wrong on my bow. Make sure everything's loose, or make sure everything's tight. Like I noticed this is loose. It's not a deal breaker. These things have come out before. It's just got a couple little screw things that go in there, and it's not really going to stop the bow from working, but it's something I need to fix. And if you have plenty of time, you can go find the pieces. I think the little screws just work their way out in my case. But that's an example of something, right? One more thing to go wrong. Another thing, you want to make sure this guy's moving. It guides your strings. And then this guy right here, this is something I have the most issue with. The peep sight rubber piece. You can see it's frayed. I need to order another and get a new one. But it's good for now. It'll be good until I'll order one for next season, now that bow season's over. But basically I had an issue with this guy slipping off, so I put a little super glue to hold it into place on there, and you can see that. You want to check your D-ring loops, make sure they're good. You don't have to do too much fiddling with them, just you can tell if they're tight and if they look good. Make sure this guy's tight. Inspect your whatever you call these things. I forgot what they're called, but you got a brain fart. I've been sick, and I'm doing these videos from home because I'm bored and I can't go to work. But anyways, yeah. So just give it a good visual inspection. Make sure nothing looks too frayed. Make sure everything's kind of solid and working the way it's supposed to. That's gonna save you problems when you get to the stand, because imagine if you get up in the stand and you see one of your strings is like misaligned, or like your bow's unshootable, or going to be inaccurate because your sight's loose and then you can't trust it, then you're gonna wing an animal. Anyways, so yeah, make sure all that's squared away, and then so that's kind of your prep. So prep, check all this, way up to the stand, make sure you take your arrows. That's a biggie. I've definitely left the arrows before because I do like to keep it like this, but make sure you take your arrows. When you get up to the stand, take the quiver off, and then make sure you take an arrow out and prep it. So when I'm in the stand, this is how it looks. Again, I'm in the stand. This is my actual checklist. Actually, make sure that's on tight. Make sure that your arrow's in here. If you don't have the whisker biscuit deal, this type, you don't need it, but it's the best that I've found, because I can kind of sit my bow, because the way I like to sit, I'll just kind of lean my bow up on the front of the rest of the stand. That way I have easy access to it. And then your actual rotation when you start to actually hunt needs to be the same, right? So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to scoot the camera back just a little bit, angle it up so hopefully you can see. So basically, one thing I'm going to show you, a lot of times you're going to know which way the animals are expected to come from, or at least you know where you hope for them to come from. Obviously, bow hunting, you're going to be standing up shooting. There's very minimal situations where it can be seated bow hunting. So what you want to do to minimize the amount of movement, because bow hunting, you're going to have a lot of movement no matter what, and it's not always one deer. If there's, I don't know if you've ever bow hunted, but if you ever have more than one deer that are hanging out when you're bow hunting, it becomes challenging to be able to stand up, get the bow pulled back and on the deer without any of them seeing you and running off. It can be challenging. So anyways, just gonna take the broadhead off just for, not that I plan to shoot it, but just for extra safety. But anyways, so I'm gonna put this back down. The biggest thing, whenever you're in your stand, you want to face your chair a little bit to the right. So if you're right-handed, you want to face your chair a little bit to the right of where you're actually hoping to see deer and get a shot, right? Your ideal situation, because any little prep you can do is going to make that ideal situation perfect. And a lot of times deer will, come out places they're not supposed to be, but generally if you're more canted to the right, anyways, even if the deer comes from somewhere else, say, oh yeah, great, hoping for a deer to come out right there. So if I'm canted this way, I just make my way up real slow, get into my spot, bam, perfect, right? However, if the deer's over there, that's not really a hard task, because going back this way is super easy, because this turn is whatever. Like, you can do this and be pretty accurate. The problem is turning this way because it's unnatural. So make sure that you're canting your body to the right. And that little, like I said, that little extra pressure, that little less step you have to take. Say the deer's right here, you can get away with a little bit here. So that little extra shuffle, right? That's a sound. Imagine if I was on a stand trying to be quiet and I just did that. So any little thing that can happen, try to cut it out beforehand. And you can do that with a couple little things. Like I said, cant your stand, have everything prepped. As soon as you hear anything, if you hear something, anything, make darn sure that you go ahead and clip that release. I don't know what kind of release you're using. If they're using a release, if you're not using a release, doesn't matter, right? Because you're just gonna grab it and go. But at least get your fingers ready, because sometimes it happens, right? So like, for example, so this last biggest buck I've shot, sitting there, got an 8-pointer coming up to the right, and there's another one behind it, another smaller deer. I didn't know the second one was it was also a small deer too. But first one's 8-pointer, not gonna shoot it, just looking at it, cool. Pops up, stands in front of me. I mean, right in front of me, like 6 yards away, and I'm in a short tripod. So he looks at me right in the eyes, and I just kind of slowly close my eyes and sit there until I, feel him turn around. I can kind of hear him. He turns around, kind of walks off back across there. The other one, all right, coast's clear, but he doesn't come as close to me, but kind of follows him across the road. And then I hear another one, right? And before any of that even happened, when I saw that first deer, I clipped. because I just knew if I had the possibility of shooting, and that might be a thing, that this little extra 4 seconds could mean the world, because I may only get 2 seconds to stand up, like, which is what happened. A lot of times you have plenty of time, because if you only have one deer out there, you know, you can wait till its head is behind a tree. You got 3 deer out there, you got to do what you got to do, right? And especially if they're moving. This big buck that came by, he never actually stopped. So if I wouldn't have been clipped and jumped up, because that's basically what I did, because the front two had moved on and the last one was coming. So I went, as soon as I saw that third buck and he turned his head, I just straight up. Ordinarily, I'm going to stand up like this, right? If I've got some time and I'm worried about being seen, I'm going to ease my way up. But I knew I only had a second to get that shot off when the time came, so I wanted to make sure I was ready, and I knew he wasn't looking at me. And I knew the other two were like I said, I only had a window to shoot in, so I knew that I would be good to stand up quickly, or at least I hope so. So I got up pretty quick. Luckily, I was shooting here, or let's say I was shooting here. I was already canted this way, right? So it was too easy, right? Come in over here, pop up. He turns his head. I see, oh, big rack, definitely a shooter. And he comes nowhere near me in front like the first couple did, and just makes his way to that one little hole where I'm pretty sure he's going to come across. So as soon as I pop up, he goes that way. I go ahead and get it back, right? I'm back, because I know I'm only going to have a second, and literally I get it back. You can see in the camera when I actually pull back, I go from up here and actually get on. As soon as I get on it, he hits that spot. He hits that one little window, and you'll see it. And if all that stuff hadn't have been prepped perfectly, wouldn't have got that deer. So I hope these tips help. I really do. They help me. They're not learned by me. They're not my tips. They were given to me, and I'm giving them to you guys. All right. Well, good luck out there.